Alright everyone, this is going to be a video on how I have my hoop net set up for lobster hooping out of a kayak. So first, I like to use these Promar ambush nets. This is the 32-inch version. For bait, I made this DIY bait tube, and I do have a separate video on how to make one of these. For line, I'm using these 1/4-inch polypropylene line that I got at Harbor Freight. This line does float, it does not sink. The reason why I went with this line is because it's fairly compact for the amount of line you get. So for example, this little spool here is 120 foot, 115 to 120 foot. So if this were the heavier lead core line that sink, this spool would be much larger. So when you're on a kayak, reducing the size is crucial. And for the buoy, I have it set up like this. This is a line clip from Home Depot. The line clip does have a handle that comes out here that I've cut out to reduce the chance of things getting caught in the net. And I did the same thing with this line organizer here. So for this line organizer, I cut off about 2.5–3 inch off of each end, as well as removing the loops that were on here. So when I transport these things, I have it inside the net. So cutting these things out reduce the chance of it snagging on the net. For the buoy, I did cut off roughly 35% of the buoy, so it cones out this way. I've cut this down for the same reason, reducing size, so it makes it much easier to transport while you're on your kayak. So I've also looped it with 2 separate lines, and the reason for this is it gives a little bit more freedom to move when it's in the water. And I've also added lead weights to the bottom like many people do here, and have holes for various size glow sticks. And I've also added reflector tapes. Makes it a lot easier to find in the water, especially when you have different colors. It's much easier to identify which buoy is yours when you're in a busy area. So when I let the line out, I'll let as much line out as I need. So I'll typically let out an extra maybe 5 foot. So I try to manage the line as well as possible. But you do want to take into account the the swells, as well as the change in the tide. So but because this doesn't float, I only let out as much as I need. Take into account the water conditions. So you want to leave a little bit extra, just for if you have a heavy current or a swinging tide or high swells. You want to make sure you have extra line for that. So if the water is going to come up a few feet in the next hour, you want to make sure you have that extra few feet let out. So once I let out as much line as I need, I'll loop the line through one time here, and I'll loop it through the bottom area here. So this prevents more line from coming out. And once I do that, I'll clip this over it like so, and I'll leave it in the water just like this. So this way the buoy is close to the line spool, so they're not too far apart from each other, and this keeps the line from coming unwind. So anyway, that's how I have my hoop set up for hooping out of a kayak, and this should work for both lobster and crabs.